Hello and welcome to a project that's been ongoing since the early 1990s, so naturally you're going to come in the middle. What this is some daily updates that I recorded on my mobile phone just to capture what I was up to. There are other films which follow a theme or follow a project all the way through, so this is literally me walking around the shed talking to myself, holding the phone out. So I hope you enjoy it. More than anything, I appreciate the comments, and on this one in particular, the format. Put some subtitles in because this is some months ago, and I've learnt a fair amount since. So I'm not going to get much time on it for a while. I thought maybe the last job before shutting up shop would be tidy up and get all the random bits of wood in the bin and nuts and bolts and tools, but I didn't. I decided that as I was in the mood for doing fiddly, complicated, iterative design stuff, keep going with that because I'm not always in that mood, and sometimes I just want something simple and straightforward. And I'm hoping doing these hoses will be in that category. But I'm pleased with the progress I have made. So you have sort of cardboard and bits of stick and bits of tape. And some things get made, more out of tape than cardboard. But it's tricky because things like that bit, I cut out a new one, but this was a very odd shape offcut that was wide one end, thin the other. And it turns out that was significant, because without it, that wouldn't go in and out. But it does now. And there's a good bit of the firewall hooks in to the battery box and snugs in. And having got that bit done, I can then come around the corner and start working on this bit. I'd started here and I was going around the other way and putting angle brackets in and cutting bits of wood. I literally spent the whole morning making a piece that I then just threw in the bin. But I am getting somewhere and enjoying it, which is the important thing. Another day not tidying up, and surprisingly productive afternoon for how much time I had. It's been worth putting the bonnet sides on again, see how things look. And I've been doing things like thinking about the throttle cable and how that routes. In terms of things that have been done, so painted these bits of firewall. I like them that grey, so the green pops. And then I've finished off the battery box, so there's a bolt comes through a hole here, and then it slides in and out. And then I've got this crazy block of wood that's cut in various directions with a bolt. Terrible mess here, but that just slides in, so that's very pleasing. With these bits of firewall, what's nice is I can lift that one out without disturbing the other two, or that one without disturbing the other two, or that one. And they're crazy shapes. The wooden one I'm most happy with. Sorry, this one over here I'm most happy with. This one might get remade in aluminium, so I've been reluctant to drill to clamp that in. It's nice starting to get a sense of what the foot bulge will look like, because I've got that curve here, and the throttle cable out because I've been working out how much space I need. These bits of cardboard just smushed in, and I'm likely to smush in some aluminium just to fill the last gaps, but it's getting close around there. Something else I've done is a little wedge here. I drew blood with that because I was having to get underneath and do a screw up from the other side, which reminds me why I really like doing things from the outside, and captive nuts and this plate in here. But it's getting more and more of a car. It's starting to think about which way the wiring will go. After a little while away, I'm back on it. I've had 2 short evenings and I've been beefing up the tail structure.
So like everything on this car when it was built, it was very light, very flimsy, and if it didn't need to be there, it wasn't. So it was pretty marginal. The final bit of the tail is made in one piece. So there's one piece of aluminium, so it's fold down all the way around, down the other side, and then riveted along a spine. And then on the very back, there's a piece that I hammered into a sandbag. I managed to do quite a nice wide edge, which I'm still proud of. And then that slips over the body tub, which is plywood, and then the skin, and then the skin doesn't quite touch when it's all in position, it turns out. And then it's bolted there, and then bolted here with this complicated wooden piece to position the blocks to get the bolts in, and then a couple of flush screws, and then to get the whole thing tight and to make the spacer a bit bigger to push this down so the curvy bits are tight, and then templating in cardboard, then hardboard. Now I've got this thin piece of plywood which curves from one side to the other, those strips of wood, so I can put screws through from the other side. And at the moment the screws sit proud, but I'll do the same trick to get those flush, which is to screw through the hole with a big screw into this countersink that will then dimple the aluminium so those screws go flush. So there's a little spine down the middle to screw into as well. And then there's quite a chunky piece going one side to the other. And then that black line is where I'm going to thin it down. And then there'll be a piece of plywood to close it to the boot floor. And at the moment I'm templating, so it's bits of cardboard, bits of tape just to fill the gaps, 'cause it's quite complicated with, it's like a double step in there and that around the corner. And then that will keep all the weather out. Hopefully it'll be the same shape that side. Be surprised if it is, but we'll see. And then that will give me a warm, dry cavity to put all the tail wiring into. So it'll be an exciting stage if I can get some wiring in and get the lights back on, and run some cable down underneath, back under the scuttle, and have a couple of switches and have some lights going on and off, which is always an exciting stage. You feel like it's alive. Something else I need to do differently is the number plates on the side of the tail. They're not facing rearwards, which I think even 90 years ago, let alone 35 years ago, wasn't good. So I'm going to do little squares each side, and then a light above, which is the stop tail, and then illuminates the number plate, and then add an indicator. It might be the ones they bought, might be some homemade ones, I'm not sure. Last time I used the bolts to hold the bracket, but I'm going to make sure I can take the tail off and leave the lights on this time. So, you know, my 25-year-old self would hate all of these extra components and extra weight and complexity, but at my age, being able to take it apart, fault find, and it slip apart and slip back together again easily is much more important. Car is outside for the first time in a long time, and it's nice seeing painted bulkhead and the scuttle and William's home, so it's trying it for size. It's the first time I've seen the so-called upholstery. Got the dashboard in, got the tunnel's coming out again, and the tail on, and the tail is absolutely solid, and the bolts go in and out nicely, and I'm pleased with the hollow underneath. And William's got to go and do the cooking, so we're just going to look at his feet, which are what size? 10. And there's lots of space, brake. And what we've worked out is if I take this bit out, he can wobble his foot inside the old wok lid. So I need to be careful with how much throttle travel I need. And in the loft I found a newer wok lid that might end up there. So your work is done, William. So it's exciting having it outside and on a stage. In terms of the styling, trying to hide that dip is going to be tricky. And I've been able to get it outside because I've been having a tidy up. So this is Hello Tom, a garage tidy up video. So this is the frame that used to support the steering column when it was a bare chassis. I'm just going to take that apart, salvage the screws and the blocks, and the wood will go back on the pile to use again. Things like the gearbox mounts. This panel fitted in behind there, that can go. I'm going to take this frame apart now. So much work went into building it. There's my clutch footrest that was absolutely, definitely going to be welded into that structure. Very glad I didn't. Bits of floor, bits that held the scuttle on. So all of that's going. I get surprisingly fond of these templates, but that looks too much like a part, so I need to put that in the bin. And these have served their purpose, so they're all going. That'll be useful again. I just bin those. A couple of bits I might save. So even though I'm not going to put the engine on the next car in the same position, that's a record of where it goes relative to the engine mounts. And this is my start on the clutch mechanism, so I'm keeping that. But down this end I can now get to the Austin 7 engine again, and it would be nice to try the Austin 7 engine in that frame. So that's something I'm looking forward to. The big piece of wood I saved because I used that for eyeballing down the side of the car for where the undertray is going to go. I've got my bonnet sides in progress. Now, one template I am saving is the new dash. So it's the original dash and the new dash next to each other. And I realised it's a full 2 fingers taller. And that's kind of a measure of how much taller the whole car has got. So there's 2 fingers in the dash top, and then there's another 2 fingers in the floor, and then this goes 2 fingers down from that level. So no wonder I feel like I'm rattling around in it. This side's going to be difficult to style, so I think the first job is to work out where the undertray sits on this side, which should be much more straightforward. And I'm starting to think about the bonnet, and that might be the next job. We'll see.
So that's the end of that set of essentially films I made for WhatsApp with friends. Next time I'll be having a bit of sort out of odds and ends and leftovers in the garage. I go to the Haynes Museum and see the Austin 7 special that John Haynes built when he was at school and wrote his first book. There's a trailer which I bought from a guy called John Sutton who built it the month I was born, which I refurbished. It's carried quite a lot of lovely cars. I'm getting that ready to go out to my godson. I get a little bit confused with different gearbox types and make a good start on the dashboard design, working out where all the switches and dials go. So hopefully see you next time.